Hey everyone, I just thought I would check in with you guys just to kind of let you know we're going to be doing another podcast this Thursday, and I'm sure you guys are interested in this one. This one's going to be a good one because we're going to talk a little bit about communication, communication styles, and how to change ourselves, or at least overcome some crazy communication styles that we may have been in complex relationships. I'm trying to tiptoe around some of the conversations, but come on, we've all been in some crazy relationships, whether it's our former marriages or dating relationships or something where a lot of criticism, a lot of yelling and screaming, a lot of anger, a lot of accusations, lots of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this Thursday, maybe some strategies to kind of help us through it. Um, Myself, I come from a bit of a martial arts background and with my job prior in law enforcement. And so I kind of come from an area, or at least from an area of what we would call, warrior wisdoms and kind of thinking like warrior-esque. And so I use a lot of the warrior wisdoms from like Musashi, who was a famous samurai in Japan, the 1600s. I use some other Stoic principles you might get from the Stoics in Europe. Um, and so, for example, I'm going to use Musashi's four-step anger control methodology. And I just want to cover a couple of them. We'll talk about more of that on Thursday, this coming Thursday. But for example, the four-step process that Musashi uses is to recognize, then distance yourself, use breathing to help, and then have a strategic response. And this is a four-step anger control method. So if you're easily triggered, you're easily angered by conversations or triggered by things that you might hear from somebody, this is a way, these are some techniques you can use to control your anger. And, he uses some of these principles, for example, recognizing it. So what's very interesting is that when Musashi talked about recognizing your anger, it sneaks up on you. And the reason it sneaks up on you is that emotions come from a different part in the brain, and they are things that they're a reaction, right? Um, when we were all in tribes and we were roaming around and we were trying to figure things out, and we lived in small communities, we relied on each other, but we also relied on sounds and noises and things that reacted in us that caused us to either flee or climb a tree or do something in response to emotions, right? And so we've developed those over thousands of years. And so what happens is now we live in a modern world, and when we get triggered with anger, so think of driving down the road and somebody cuts you off, right? You tend to react with anger before you even think about it. Like your reaction is to like honk or scream or something, right? And so Musashi said that the better you get at recognizing your emotions, and what he was referring to is your emotions come from a different part of your brain before your frontal cortex kicks in and recognizes that you're losing control and that you've already yelled at somebody or you've already engaged with somebody in anger. And so he recommends that you try to work on recognizing emotions ahead of time, then distancing yourself from those emotions. So basically stepping outside, acting like a witness, be like rather than, say you see a car accident, right? And you're a witness to a car accident. It's easier on the outside to look at the car accident than to be in the middle of the car accident. Does that make sense? So when you recognize that you're getting angry, you need to distance yourself from that anger and look at it as if you're a witness to that anger. And then you're able to um, work on controlling those emotions as they come out. And then he recommends that you go into some breathing techniques. One technique that he recommended that worked really well for him, and I've used it, it's really works really well, is to breathe with a 4 count. So you breathe in through your nose, like with a 4 count. So it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you exhale out your mouth for a 6 count. So you want to continue letting the air out for 6 count. And that means all the air, not just some of it. So it's like you breathe in for 4 and out for 6. And you do that a couple of times, and you believe it or not, it's really surprising how your mind calms down, your emotions calm down, right? And then it allows you, when you have that breathing, to then have more of a strategic response to anger, right? So now you're going to not just blow up or honk the horn or stick your fist out the window or, heaven forbid, flip the bird. You're going to have more of a strategic response. And I've used this example a lot of times in other podcasts with you guys. Like, for example, I'm driving down the road and I get upset. Maybe somebody cuts me off and I start feeling that emotion. I immediately recognize it. I distance myself from it. I may not need to breathe. Maybe I take a couple of breaths, like, or just kind of take that 4 in, 6 out kind of breath one time to kind of cleanse it out. And then my strategic response is in my mind, I tell myself that, how do I know that this person who cut me off isn't just racing to the hospital because he got a phone call or she got a phone call that her child is sick or in an accident or got hit by a car or something, and they're trying to race to the hospital, and they're not cutting me off because they're trying to offend me. So I try to have more of a strategic response to, my reactions, and that's how we can control some of that anger. So, but this Thursday, we'll cover more techniques and some more. We'll recognize some more. There's what they call the 4 horsemen, and so we'll kind of talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk about how we can deal with some of the reactions we've had in our past. But if you want to know more about the Musashi's 4-step anger control method, leave a comment, like the video, share the video. And then maybe I'll post the summary of Musashi's techniques in Facebook or in the notes on YouTube. All right. So look forward to seeing you guys all on Thursday, and we'll see you later.